in the school. So watch for that, and thank you to the video team for showing up today. And that concludes my introduction remarks. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and we're going to have what we call a celebration of history. And I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Kinsey Ferris, who was in Maplewood from 1927 to 1932. And I've asked her to give us a few of her memories. Yes, ma'am.
The mic always has to be lowered for me. I have always liked show and tell, my favorite part of school. I brought the dance dress. In your program, by the way, on the first page of pictures, it shows the minuet dance. I even remember the dance, but I'm going to spare you that. Yes, we did have a 70-year reunion together of the first graders who started here in 1927, and I know at least 4 more are in the audience. Would you stand? Betty, Bliss, Dolores, Maxine, and if there are others that I haven't noticed. We all started first grade together in 1927. My other show and tell is an arithmetic paper. It's dated October 20th, 1927. The assignment was to draw the numbers 1 to 100. And I did that, and I got a double A. And my mother made this comment on the paper. This is the first time that Essie got double A on her numbers. She usually makes some of them backwards. I wanted to mention a few points. One is regimentation. One is drilling, one is competition, games, and lunches. I want to show how 1920 Maplewood was quite different, not building, but in big talk. In regimentation, we lined up before we went into the school. We'd hear music, a piano in the front hall played by Miss Billy McMurray. We'd play march music, and we'd line up, hold hands with our partner, and stand facing front and not talking in line. If we talked in line, the teacher might come up with a ruler and snap the hand. I know from experience. We would march in, and as we turned the corner, we would salute the flag that was way high on the wall. We'd do it as we walked, and we felt really great doing that. One way we learned was drilling. We'd write our numbers over and over and over, and the letters. Phonics, we would study, repeating the phrases, the syllables, until we knew them forward and backward. The multiplication tables, we practiced so much that we, out of the blue, the teacher could say 97, and we'd know the answer just like that. We didn't have the little calculators or computers. There was a lot of competition in school then, and I think probably there isn't so much now, and I think it's good. We competed in spelling. Who has the best record? Who has missed the fewest all year? Prizes were given for the competitor who came out on top. We had a kind of math, arithmetic drills called the Curtis drills. Some of you who were here in the earliest will remember those. There were cards, and we put sheet paper on the card and write the answers. We were timed, so speed was important, and accuracy, of course, was. The games we played out on the playground was made up by the children. I don't recall ever having a teacher out there to organize them. We played Red Rover, We'd have two lines facing each other and shout as loud as we could, Red Rover, let so-and-so come over. And that person would run over and we'd be holding hands in our line, try to break through, and we'd try to hold that person. We played hopscotch, we bounced balls, we played jacks, we jumped rope. We played house out in the yard. The huge maple trees had roots on top of the ground that would crisscross and make little rooms, and they were the rooms of our house. We had running competition, and of course there was baseball. Okay, the lunches that we had, we carried them from home. The girls ate in the big room on one side of the building, and I think the boys ate somewhere else. I sure don't remember the boys in lunch. Maybe I just wasn't looking. Mothers would volunteer to come and cook soup. And I think that wasn't every day, but just some days. And if we were lucky enough to bring a nickel from home, we could get a bowl of soup for 3 cents and a little bottle of milk for 2 cents. And I do mean a bottle, no cartons. That's all I'm going to say about school in the 1920s. But I want to say that we're happy to be back in the Puyallup Valley after growing up here, then 5 years in Seattle, 4 years in Oregon, 16 years in Colorado, 1 year in Pakistan, 19 years in Wisconsin, 1 year in Indonesia, then 5 years in Denver. We decided to come back home to the Puyallup Valley.
Thank you, Esther. Next, we have Mr. Walter Kunshed. He was a student at Maplewood from 1932 to 1938. I received a letter from Walter shortly after my appointment as principal here at Maplewood. And in what he had sent, some of you may have seen this in my office, a letter from Walter. We received his penmanship letter, actually a letter in his jacket, letter, Maplewood in. And his letter is, honestly, I'd like you to take a look at it in my office, along with the letter itself. And it really was the first thing that excited me about pursuing the history of Maplewood. So it was a great pleasure to have Walter Kunshed joining us today to talk about his experiences in Maplewood. Walter?
The first 2 years I was at Maplewood, in first and second grade, and we had a fire in the school each year. So I don't know if that's when it was built new because people started considering we were in a fire trap. Not really. We got up nicely and it took us a nice break. But I only remember one fire was located in the extreme top roof beside the chimney. I thought it was a chimney fire or what the cause was probably by the old furnace that was there. Then I noticed today when I came from the rear of the school, all the big trees are gone. And the previous speaker said they were a great part of the playground, a great part of the atmosphere when I was in school. Of course, the old school was an impressive old building, it really was. Overwhelmed a small child because it was so huge and tall. You came up the front steps and inside as you came in to the left, that's where the bell was, to ring the bell. And there were always people willing to volunteer to help Bill Sears, the janitor, ring the bell. And Bill, like most janitors in most schools, was the most popular man in school. No discredit Mr. Troy, he was a principal. Bill was the janitor. He was a big, strong man. He was the favorite of every kid, and he liked every kid. I imagine that everything from Maplewood while he was here. The basement, the boys were on the other side. The school was segregated when it came to basic. There was a girls' side, a boys' side, and you didn't step across the line. We didn't have tables for eating our lunches, so there were just benches attached to the wall. We sat around the outside wall. Another thing I remember is in the basement, of course, the lavatory was there. And our boys' lab was a dank dungeon. You know, I imagine it was one reason that not many kids asked permission to leave class during the class day. At least not in the first couple of years. And the two I remember, the wood pile. Mr. DeLong told me that the old building was right about here. And then behind it, exit timber, there would be 5 or 6 rows of wood. The pieces would be about 4 feet long. They would be stacked about 6 feet high. And they probably ran back 40 or 50 feet, although the little guy looked like 100 feet. And as the year went along, that wood would be burned in the furnace down in the basement, and the wood piles would disappear, and by spring, by May, the wood would all be gone. But that was, when the new building was there, we had a playground as we went to those huge old wood piles. When they built the school, I was in the 3rd grade at the time, and I don't know where all of the grades were housed, but we were housed in a classroom on the junior high side of Shaw High School. And we stayed there from September until March, or late March, when we came over into the new building. And what a grand place it was. And actually now, once again, a grand place 60 years later. It's really been refurbished, looks great, and I wish somebody would do the same thing for me after 60 years. I suppose as every child, you remember your teachers in 1st grade, Miss Blomberg and Mrs. Jackson. Then we built the new school. There were just 6 classrooms. There was no kindergarten. Mrs. Jackson, that room, Miss Irene McCullough was on the corner. Mrs. Jelani, the 3rd grade teacher, was in the middle. Then there were offices and the old cafeteria in between. Miss Eleanor Hanson had the other corner. It was her first year around in 4th grade. Miss Ray had been there previously. In that corner was Miss Bud, and then on this side of Mr. Langton was Mr. Croy, who was the principal and also the 6th grade teacher. And I would say I do remember the teachers, and also those teachers gave me and every other child a quality education. The basics that were presented and demanded of us and expected of us, held for me, they met all the needs I ever needed in basic education as I went through junior high and high school and on beyond. So I have a lot of great memories about the old school of the fire, what was a new school, and we were the last ones to get a brick school. Spinning, store, maker, they had a brick building, and we had a wooden one. And we came the brick building, of course, and we were just kings of the block for that at least. And we also won, the boys won the baseball championship when I was in 6th grade, and I think the girls did also, and I'm not sure. But like all days in the past, they were good days, as this one is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. And then we move to 1951. PTA president and first Golden Acorn winner, Maplewood Elementary School, Mary Ellen Newcomb, she's here today to talk about her experience as a PTA person, a mom at Maplewood, and the secretary from 1957 to 1971.
Maplewood School is a very important part of my life. It's really why we are living in Peoria. My husband was transferred to the Naval Station down in Tacoma. We came from California, where my daughter Matt was in a school of 5,000 children. So we decided we would like to look for a small school in a house close to the school where she could walk, no buses. And luckily we found this beautiful little school, Maplewood. And right down the street was a house being built, so we bought it. Matt went to school, and I became active in the PTA. I even volunteered for the nominating committee because I thought that would be safe. I wouldn't be elected to anything. However, Mrs. Manley and Mr. Ziger were on the nominating committee. And And when the slate was filled and there wasn't a meeting president, Mr. Zyder says, "Mrs. Manley and I nominate you." I said, "That isn't fair." But Mr. Zyder says, "But it's legal." And so that's how I became PTA president. I went to the first convention in Spokane and saw all the school papers there. So I brought back samples and asked Mr. Gallagher if we could sponsor a school paper. And he thought it was a good idea. And that was the beginning of the Maplewood Chips. We had a contest for the student who would name the paper. I think he won $4. Ms. Harry moved up to the junior high, and I applied for the job. And I was so happy when Mr. Gallagher hired me. Now this was a period of austerity. There were classes in the hall. I had one lighter that backspaced on the end. I had an automatic hit clock. I had a writing machine that the handle fell off after you pulled it 5 times. And in those days we used carbon paper. Probably a lot of you don't even know what carbon paper is. You have copying machines. Well, I went down to the old superintendent's office with my worn piece of carbon paper. And did I get a new box of carbon paper? Or even a half a box? I got one piece. Things were very economical then. I treasure the memories of the children. I have these stories, but it's hard to just confine it to 3 minutes. But I remember the little boy who came to us with a bouquet of tulips. Proudly he said, "I picked these just for you." And there at the bottom of the spin was the balls. And then one day, this little first grader came screaming down the hall, "Help me." He called me Mrs. Cucumber. Now Mr. Grover said he's going to tell on me. Everybody called her Mrs. Cucumber. And I rushed out to see what the task was. And he said, "Jimmy has my new basketball, and he's trying to flush it down the toilet." One morning, one of the teachers came into the office at a real busy time and handed me a hand grenade. She said one of her students whose father was a soldier had brought it in on the bus for show and tell. I put it on Mr. Grover's desk. And in a few minutes, a little boy came in and he said, "Mr. Grover's out on the playground," and he said I had better wait for him in his office. I said, "Well, go ahead, go in there and sit and wait." And I was talking to someone and I thought, "Oh my heavens, if I set that mischievous little boy in there with a hand grenade." And sure enough, I went in and rushed in there, and he had it in his hand. He says, "Whoa, this is neat, it's real." And he said, "It's got a pin in it." Now, I watched all of John Wayne's war pictures, so I was kind of an expert on these pins. And I knew that as long as the pin was in it, it was probably safe. And so I took it from him and put it in my desk. And when Mr. Grover came in, he called the police to see what to do about it since we didn't have a bomb disposal. The police came, a bucket of water, and they carefully placed a hand grenade in there and said they would call Fort Lewis. Now, today, that would probably make the 5 o'clock news. But in those days, it was just another day in the office. started to interview my replacements. And I remember this one lady came in. She was very prim and precise, and she put the paper in the typewriter. And just then a boy came in and he had a snake in a jar. And he said, "Would you keep this snake for me while I play basketball?" And he's a real smart snake. He said, "Sometimes he can get the top in the jar." I remember this woman was trying to hide where she was watching the snake trying to open his jar. And then the little girl came in with a nosebleed. And she was dripping blood all over. And this lady stood up and she said, "I really don't want this job." Maplewood has been an important part of my life. Both my girls went through Maplewood. Pat came back as a teacher. I made many friends of the teachers and parents. And I had the privilege of working with and for two dedicated professional educators, Dennis Gallagher and Rolf Roller.
In tune with our theme of celebrating the history of Maplewood, Mrs. Pat Drake, Mary Ellen Newcomer's daughter, is here. She was a student from 1951 to 1953, and a teacher at Maplewood from 1971 to 73. When I talked to both of them on the phone, trying to identify the dates of their service here at Maplewood, there was some discrepancy between two of them about which dates were correct. And I think that the program indicates the correct dates that we all agree on. So, with that, I would like to introduce this.
My mother's a hard act to follow. I'm Mrs. Cucumber. In a second, we will be in the year 2000. I say a second because just a moment, just a whoosh. And it was. I was in the classroom, sitting in a desk, 1950, 5th grade. Incredible. Hard to say I'm 39. When it was 49 years ago, a moment. The desk I sat in is probably in an antique store because it was one of those wooden kind with a seat that folded up, all attached. And we had over 40 students in the classroom. My teacher was Mr. Ed.D. He was a look-alike Van Johnson, at least 5th grade girls thought so. I remember Mr. Eby because he taught us the democratic process. We had class elections and some kind of control of the class with a president. He also taught us penmanship. He brought in quill pens and had us dip the pen into ink. We ate in the cafeteria. PTAs were packed. Of course, Mrs. Cucumber had something to do with that. And we did our talent shows on a makeshift stage, as Mr. Zuniger told about. I was office helper. The secretary went home at lunchtime, and so an elite group of 5th and 6th graders manned the office in the afternoon. Fortunately, I had no grenades or snakes come in. Dennis Gallagher was baseball coach, and we took on all the schools in the area. Meeker, Stewart, Spinney. Meeker was our biggest rival. The gym had cracks in the floor, and our basketball team knew how to play the cracks. They had the advantage. Too bad, now we have this beautiful floor and no advantage. Girls wore dresses, male teachers wore suits, female teachers dresses, and as I said, we wore dresses. I remember one statement Mr. Ed.D. made to us. He said, someday, not in his lifetime, but maybe in our lifetime, they would put a man on the moon. I remembered that in 19 years later when Neil Armstrong took that famous step. A wink of an eye, 1971, I was back at Maplewood School after teaching in Germany, Japan, California. There's no place like home, and Maplewood is a standout in schools, not only in the district, in the state, but the world. I am pleased to say I only had 27 students in my classroom, and my cohort was Julie Gerhardt over here, and at that time we had field trips, and female teachers were permitted to wear pantsuits. I missed my mother being at the same school with her by 1 year. In a blink of an eye, a fourth grade student that I had in my class, Lisa McNamara, Berry now, taught with me at Burgrove. Incredible how time passes. And as I said, Mr. Ed.D.'s prediction came true. As a reporter, I interviewed a Puyallup Roger High School student who said she wanted to be the first one to step on a planet, preferably Mars. In a second, we will be in the year 2000. The future is now. And I am so happy to see Maplewood will go into this next century with a brand new building ready for technology, because the body of knowledge is expanding as I speak. It has been an honor to be part of this dedication. Thank you.
The principal of Maplewood from 1962 to 1973 was Lowell Roeder. We've asked him to share some of his thoughts from that time.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. It's a real privilege to be here today and to reminisce a little bit. I certainly want to congratulate the Maplewood staff and the students and the parents, the builders, and all those people that work together so well to accomplish what we have here before us. This is some contrast to what the building used to be. The other day I met two teachers that were here in the 60s, and they said something about the change of Maplewood, and I said, have you been around the block? Oh, we just drive on Pioneer. And they really didn't know this building here even existed. So I admonished them to take a look. I worked with great people in the 60s and early 70s. And you know, we followed some great people that went for us. When I came in 1962, the boundary lines were changed because Karshner and Waller Road had been enlarged. So instead of a school of over 650, it was around 500. Mr. Gallagher had all the activity pretty well cleared out, all except the library. It was still in the hall. And that was for about 3 years until we did room 10. And we had a part-time librarian and a little librarian there. We even had to formulate a special committee to get permission to put carpet on the floor. But the powers that be downtown approved that. I think it was the only carpet in the building. I really commend the effort that was made to preserve some of the old. In 1964, we had a newly assigned teacher, came in the office before school started, and the first thing she said, I'm really impressed with those columns out front. And she really convinced me. I just wasn't feeling it myself. When I had a chance, I went out on the sidewalk, and I admired those columns myself. And you know, they're still there, all 8 of them. You'll see them in your program, on the pictures up there in the walls, and they're still out there. They've survived 2 major renovations. And that's preservation of some of the old. A couple weeks ago, reviewing some of the past a little bit Hell book, and we were recalling the earth-shaking event of 1965. That happened in an April morning before school. He and I were in the office, and thought, what do we do now? You know, we trained the students to one of their desks, and I wasn't sure it fit. And then I thought about going outside, and he discouraged that too. It's probably a good thing he did. If I went out the door, I'd have run all the way home. It was only 3 miles, and it was a good situation. The building with sud shaking, and Mr. Flat swept up the fallen plaster, and we had school going up 30 minutes after that earthquake. Now, it's really fun to look back, and I just have great memories of great people that I worked with, some of them right here. And also the students and parents, I see them all the time. Lots of students from the 60s and 70s, and it's always great to see them. I know we can't live in the past, and we've had some reminiscing days. We have to move on. And so for those involved in Maplewood now, and those that will be in the days ahead, I want to wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Shortly after the picture in the paper that encourages folks to attend our ceremony today, with Lowell staying on the steps of Maplewood, we received a phone call the day after. And someone on the phone said, I'd like to speak with Mr. Bowler. I see that he's the principal down there at Maplewood. So we've got a message for you. So, he was my principal, and said, I would like to talk to him. Next we have Miss Shirley Gerhart. She was a teacher here at Maplewood from 1969 to 1980.
30 years ago this September, I came to Maplewood as a beginning teacher, assigned to teach 4th grade in a portable house located at the end of the upper grade wing. That was my home. No, not that portable. Maplewood was my home for the next 11 years as I taught 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students. Those were good times and good years for me. They gave me the conviction that education was the right career choice, and also gave me my husband, a single parent, and so I guess that was pretty special too. Thinking about what I would say in the 3 minutes allowed brought waves of memory and feelings of nostalgia. There are too many tales to relate now, and some of the stories aren't really mine to tell. I remember this building before the 70s remodel, and windows lined the entire wall, letting in all that wonderful light, and sometimes the distractions like Tall High School band practicing for the Daffodil Parade. I remember the day that we had a total solar eclipse, and the sky darkened. We stood at the window, and the sky darkened, giving that just ethereal glow just before the kids came into school. I remember a team of wonderful teachers that I worked with in the upper grade level, and those people were such loyal friends and still are. In those days, as Pat mentioned, we wore skirts or dresses, and I remember the day that I went to Mr. Broberg and half of my colleagues and said that, asked him if he thought it would be okay if we wore a pantsuit to school. And I explained in great detail, very carefully, that these matched, the color matched the top, it matched the bottom, and it was, it didn't look, it should be okay. And he thought on it in his slow way. He said, well, that makes a lot of sense, Julie, given all the activities that go on in the school day. So I can still remember this rather bright polyester yellow pantsuit I wore. The very next day, I had kind of a navy blue trim. That was a real fashion statement. I also remember the time that Ken Keener took all of us who were interested for a tour of the Maplewood attic. And I think this must have been prior to that 70s remodel. And so we snaked along a narrow boardwalk underneath the rafters. Kind of showed us the sights, such as they were up there. And we surveyed the area on top of each of our classrooms. It was really quite an adventure. During that remodel, the people in the upper grades were transplanted or relocated to Meeker. And so we had our portables strategically placed on the Meeker playground. And if you remember, that's a really large playground. So when Meeker was at recess, it was a little noisy in our classroom, but we carried on, and it just gave us more memories of another time and place. The last year that I taught Maplewood, my class had practiced to do a play for their parents at Christmas. And we had also scheduled an evening performance at Anton for one of the service clubs that I belonged to then, still do. However, there had been an epidemic of flu throughout the school, and I remember on one day I had 7 children in my room. And the play was coming up, and I thought this was going to go. But that evening, those students, along with their parents, all but one child was able to came to Anton's, and they looked a little peaked, but the show went on, and I think it's kind of an example of the Maplewood spirit, I guess. I have one last thing to share, and that was my special apron given to me by the students in my class, and this was given to me before I went on to other district responsibilities. Each child signed it, and I still treasure it as a special memento. It's got a few stains because I actually. As you dedicate to the new building, you might remember that it's not the bricks and walls that make up a school, but the people, the students and the parents and the staff of the past and the present and future who really dedicate and hallowed the halls here at Maplewood. Thank you.
And finally, we have a student of the 90s. Brian Weber is a current 6th grade student, and he's attended Maplewood since kindergarten, as many of his brothers and sisters before him. So he's going to share some of his thoughts.
My name is Brian Weber. I'm a 6th grader here at Maplewood Elementary. I've been here since kindergarten, and I had 4 other brothers and sisters who have gone to Maplewood too. My memories at Maplewood are from when I was 3. Well, my first memories. When I was little, I remember things being a lot bigger. And I followed my mom around, who was in the PTA. And we went to my brothers and sisters' Halloween parties to help out, but I really don't know how much help I was. My first day of kindergarten, I was Mrs. Judd's helper. I already knew where everything was because I had spent so much time there. In 3rd grade, I remember walking down to the office for Mrs. Spanny. A ceiling tile fell about 20 feet behind me. That probably will never happen again in this beautiful new facility. My most memorable experience at Maplewood was when I was in my first trimester with Mr. Stone. Mr. Stone was an Australian exchange teacher. He talked so different you could hardly understand him. He was a really good teacher though. Mr. Stone taught us many things about Australia, like the song Waltzing Matilda. He also taught us about a lot of other animals and weird stuff like that. We learned about Aboriginals and what music they played in their artwork. Their music was really neat because they found things in nature and turned them into musical instruments. That was my most memorable time at Maplewood Elementary. There has been many changes throughout the 1990s. The halls used to be rather dark and kind of gloomy. Now we have this beautiful building. The walls of the old school make plastered and really hard. I've heard people say that they saw a rat in the bathroom at the old school. You can tell that there have been many changes since the beginning of this decade. I think what's been really fun about this new building has been hosting our first elementary basketball tournament in the new gym. And we won, and there's our banner. With our new technology here at Maplewood, we are able to produce live video announcements every morning. There is also a group of students called the A-Team who produce educational videos for the school. I have been lucky enough to be involved in each of these productions. I am proud to be a student at Maplewood Elementary for so long, and I hope that future students can be as proud as I have been to be at this magnificent school.
And that concludes our celebration of the history of Maplewood. We thank you for letting us tell our stories. But this time, as promised, it is time for our remembrance song. And you know, I forgot the accompanist name, I don't have it written. It is Mrs. Knudsen. All right, Mrs. Knudsen and Mrs. Knudsen, would you please? I will look at my phone for you, Mrs. Knudsen. heard it, would have been proud. So it was from what we do. Thank you very much. I don't know why we don't do that anymore. Dedication ceremonies. Well, we did. At this time, we'd like to start the formal presentation of the building. To present the building, we have Mr. Lee Fenton and Mr. Tom Bates from Bert Lawrence Rising Plus Bates, the architect firm that designed this facility.
Thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be here, as everyone stated, but especially for me today. The school has been my pastime for the last couple of years, and I've really enjoyed getting to know the people that I've been able to work with individually and as a group. And I have a few people I wanted to recognize today. Our office, Ed.D. Architects, is proud to have been a team member and working with the staff and the community and the students on developing the plans for the project. It's truly been an honor. The planning team that we worked with had some key members, and I see a lot of them here today. And there's one individual that I especially like to recognize. His name is Paul Stevens. He's with the Puyallup School District, and I think I see Paul out there. I'm going to have to ask him to stand and make sure you guys get him with him. It is truly a pleasure, and it has been a pleasure working with Paul the last couple of years on the development of the plans. And the success of this project is due in great part to his great leadership on this project. The rest of the team, and I'm naming them when I'm done, you can give them all a hand. Ray Graham, with the Puyallup School District, Jim Asmussen, Peggy Simpson, Linda Judd, Eileen McKay, Shelley Langston, Kelly Sterling, Cheryl Walter, Nancy Spanny, Ginger Kitts, Marjorie Harrison, Ann Andreas, Leslie Hogue, Terry Gunsalz, and Tim McKinney. If any of you are here, please stand and let's give them. We spent a lot of time getting to know your building before we remodeled it, and there was a reference to a ceiling tile that had fallen by Brian earlier in the program, and I'm wondering if that's the same tile that may have fallen by one of our engineers who's up in the attic, discovering the pipes and everything that were that existed there. But we did spend a good time getting to know it, and it was a wonderful building, but it had challenges. Tried to save what was wonderful and tried to improve on what wasn't as. And again, it was an honor to do so and to serve your school district. I think the key to the success of the project was working as a team with everyone. But there's the key team member over, of course, the last year has been the contractor, Neely Construction. And Skeet's going to get up a little bit later and make a presentation. But I'd like to take the time to especially acknowledge Skeet Neely and the company, and his company, Neely Construction, and of course his great team that he had working on this project. Doug Torgerson, who I'm not sure is here, but I know Brian is, and if he could please stand. It was a pleasure working with Neely Construction, and we look forward to maybe working with them again in the future, hopefully soon. That's really what I wanted to say. Tom Bates is going to come up now and make a special presentation to the school. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. You're really good with that, huh? First of all, I would also, on behalf of Bert Lawrence Rising and Bates Architects, like to thank the Puyallup School District for the honor to serve you on this project. This has been a very special project for our firm, and one, as Lee said, we're extremely proud of. I think this project is a wonderful illustration
are a wonderful example of one of my favorite quotes. And that is, teamwork is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. It has been this collaborative approach, this collaboration of people and ideas that has led to the success of this project, and Lee's acknowledged many of them. The team was very immense and diverse, but I also would just like to thank a few people. First of all, I also would like to recognize Glenn Malone and his staff for truly being our design partner. It was their professionalism and their complete commitment to quality education that really inspired Andy and I think is what is a result of what you see today. So thank you, Glenn. I also have to thank an old friend, Ed.D, for being one of those very special and becoming more unique, I guess, contractors who is extremely honorable and committed to quality. And unfortunately, that is becoming a little more rare these days. Skeet, as usual, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And finally, a very special thank you to an extremely talented, I was going to say young architect, but actually has more gray hair than I do now. So I'll just say an architect. He's my colleague and my good friend, Lee. Lee, thank you. With that, I would like to present to Glenn a small gift from our office to your school. Actually, it's to your students. It's a set of David McCulley books, and those of you that aren't familiar with him, he's a wonderful author and illustrator on books about architecture, about how things are put together and how things are built. And so this is an addition to your library. And now I'm going to turn this over to my good friend, Steve Mueller.
Thank you, Tom. Well, it's been a long year for us, but I'd like to thank several people that have already been thanked. I'd like to thank them again. I'd like to thank Paul Stevens and Brian and any of the men that were here in the construction of the school and this last remodel, and I really appreciate their input, their hard work. It's a pleasure to work with this school district and these people, and we've done it several times before and look forward to doing it several times again. A couple things about that were unique for us from a contractor standpoint, but early on in the project, when we got into the first phase, Glenn came to me and I think the superintendent and asked us and several of the other trades to partake in getting up in front of a classroom full of kids and explaining a little bit about the construction process. And it was something that we'd never done before, and it was new for me, and it was a kind of a learning experience to make you appreciate the teachers that teach the kids on a daily basis, and we only got to be in there for 15 minutes, and it was pretty scary. But as we went through the project, in some of the remodeling, we ended up in some of the, above the old closet doors, we ended up finding some old books that date back into, I believe, the 30s and 40s. And I remember coming in here, and Glenn's quite a history buff, as you know, and I brought the books that my nephew who works for us, he found them and handed them to me, and I brought them into a project meeting and had them under my chair that I was sitting there at, and I looked down and the books are gone. And Glenn's sitting next to me and he's got them under his chair. And I took the books for a couple of weeks and looked them over, and there were some names that were familiar in there and that I knew, that my folks knew. And so after letting those people look at them and enjoying them for a little bit, I brought them back to Glenn, and I think they're in the office there now. And the project did go really smooth, thanks to Glenn and his staff and the architects. It was one of those jobs that you don't run into very often, where everybody concerned had a real desire to get along, and it was that spirit of cooperation that makes a job go along smoothly. And I just appreciate Lee and his input, and Paul and Brian for all of their input, and it was just a pleasurable job. As we worked into the third phase, which was the administration part of the building and the front facade, I think we ended up taking out the old entryway at the school one day, and Glenn comes along and he says, "Where did that Maplewood sign go that was above the door?" And the guy said, "Well, Steve took it." So Glenn comes along and he said, "I want that sign." I said, "Glenn, I've already got plans for it. I'm doing something at my house and I'm going to put it there." And ever since then, Glenn, and you know, me and punch lists at the end of the project, I hate punch lists. They're inevitable on every job, but if you really do good, you get a small one. And so Glenn was the guy that was going to make my punch list. And so at the end of the job, there was a couple things that I wanted off the front facade, which were some little fluky things that when the guys took those down, those disappeared. I said, "Where'd those go, Brian?" Brian says, "Glenn took those." So Glenn had a bargaining chip with me, and so it was just a lot of fun to do, and this time I like to thank Glenn, my little fluted things. Along with these, I do have over here my fear of punch list things. I decided I better give up the sign. So I've got the sign that was the old Maplewood sign, and these are all things that were done with things that came out of the school. Those came off the front facade, the trim around them came off the whole chocolate. There are several things in the school that we have put back into the school that were old. You'll notice the front chalkboards out in the front that were redone. But I'll get that sign and that's in 1934, and that was up. If you'll notice the pictures that are in the program, there are a couple of shots there. I know there's one that shows, you can read the 1934 on either side of the sign, where it's something to make out the Maplewood part, but this is the old original Maplewood sign, I believe that was put in 1934. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I knew he was here to that too. This plaque, along with the placards, will be mounted permanently inside the entryway as you enter Maplewood, next year you'll see this hanging as a remembrance for us all to think back. Thank you. At this time, I would like Tom, Lee, and Al, and Steve Neely to come forward to make their presentation.
On behalf of Steve and Lee and myself, we would like to now officially acknowledge the building to Dr. Saab being the Yale School District.
Terry, go down, come on up here. This thing looks like it belongs to the school district. These guys gave it to us. I think we ought to be very proud of the fact that they did such a fine job. So I'd like to thank them for the tremendous job that they did, and to work with Glenn Malone and his staff in tremendous performance and putting this wonderful school together. So thank you. Here, especially thank the choir for sitting so patiently for so long. You guys have done a great job, and thank you for doing that. But I want you to look around, the students here, particularly, I want you to look around with me just a second, look at a couple of things. Pay attention to me for just now, for just a moment, take a look up here, and I want to show you. First of all, when I was your age in school, it was a long time ago, 50 years ago. There are some things here today that didn't exist. Let me just show you a couple of simple things. See the microphone underneath the marimba? We didn't have that. See the lights on the wall over there above the exit sign and battery operated? There's just in case the power goes out. We didn't have those. See the basketball backboard that's on a swivel? It swings out on the court so you can get it. You should have looked at it and want to put it back and make it into a nice big room. We didn't have that. And that television set, with the camera back in the corner, we didn't have any idea what that was. So I want you to think now, and I know this is a crazy idea, but think ahead 50 years and imagine what it's going to be like when you are up here saying nice things about school is important too, because your children attend that school. Things are going to be real different. But the core of this entire experience rests in people you know, and the people, the young people know. That's the strength of this school. It's the quality of the relationships. It's the caring and kindness and giving and thoughtfulness that exists here that makes this special community. Maplewood is a very special community. Please be proud of it. I'm very proud of the superintendent to have walked in the footsteps behind Paul Maplewood. I did not know Ms. Hannibal, but I know of it. And what I know makes me feel very humble to know the wonderful things that we do. I also want you to know that the school board who worked with Mr. Hannibal was remarkable people too. It's good things. One person that was not mentioned today that I think you as an audience ought to know about is Dr. Gary Floyd. Dr. Floyd worked on our staff for 30 years. He's now in China building schools for American kids who go to school overseas. He was very instrumental behind the scenes in making this remodel activity take place. And I think we all owe him a special debt of thanks. Finally, I'd like to ask Mindy Thompson, a board member, to stand, and Karen Pickett, board member, to stand, and Terry Bjornson, who is our past board president, standing next to me, to also remain standing. And on behalf of the school district administration, I'd like to say to you three board members, thank you for your support and congratulations to the school's members.
Thank you, Dr. Sully. Our two school board members happen to be out of state today, and that includes our president, Ron Lewis. So on his behalf, I am very, very pleased to accept this building as a finished product. I accept it on behalf of the school district and the school board. I accept it on behalf of the community, and particularly this community that Dr. Sabri has made some very appropriate comments about. But mostly, I want you to know that I accept it, and the school board accepts it on behalf of these children and the children of the next millennium. I have time and time again bugged our architects with this comment. please remember that education 20 years from now, 25 years from now, will be something you and I never dreamed of. And make sure that our buildings are flexible enough that we can adjust to that. I got to tell you, I am proud of this building. I am proud of the job it did. You're not usually typically aware of Custom Elementary. And we were faced with the reality that modeling this building was going to come pretty close to the cost of building a brand new school. And we're going to do it on a very small parcel of ground compared to what they have. But this school is the center of this community. And the fact that the community has rallied around the school is one of the reasons it is such a great community. It's really been interesting for me. I've had to be careful I didn't get distracted looking out across this crowd, because I see the Sparks family. Been part of this part of the community for years. I see the Gallaghers, the Hogans, and Brian, it was so appropriate that you were part of this. And it's so appropriate that Neely's were the ones that did the remodel job. Keeping this sense of community so real. And it's one of the reasons this school and this community is such a great place to live in. I live in it now. And I tell you, it's neat to know that my grandkids can be around here without the fears that other communities have. You have a fortunate thing, something that we cannot replicate in all of our district, in this sense of community. As you're well aware, we've gone through boundary line revisions with our high schools. You people are pretty well stable when it comes to boundary line revisions. And I wish we could do that for the whole district, because it gives that opportunity to build a sense of community. The people that you have reason to be proud of it. I think we have a great reason to be proud of the way they have remodeled, designed the remodel around the existing school. And as someone else pointed out, when you drive around the back, the first time I drove around the back and also pulled away, I sat back here and I looked at it and I said, wow. It looks like it's been there forever. And what a great job. Now I understand that I learned some things here today, by the way. I learned that being a PEA president, or secretary, I guess it was, is done successfully if you're a stand-up comedian. Wasn't she great? And I learned also that we have to burn honest principles. And one of the things that I was very, very impressed with was the way Glenn and his staff made this whole experience a learning experience for the kids, for the community. So on behalf of the board, on behalf of the community, and Glenn, on behalf of your staff and nurses, we really are proud to accept this building as a finished product. Thank you.
When we publicized our starting time, everyone asked, how long will it be? I said, well, I don't know. They didn't like that answer. We guessed we would be done by 3, and it's almost 10 minutes till 4. We have a few things that we'd like to end our ceremony with. And the last is that Mrs. Harrison and with the company, Mrs. Leach, and our choir would like to perform for you this time.
Just for now, as the land is divided by the tireless colliding of the drops of rain. And for now, let us all move together like a stream that flows forever for Betrayal.
As I said earlier, the concert that we had with our students, first and second and fourth grade, isn't it refreshing to see students doing great things in today's time and doing some stuff? Thank you. My closing remarks, I'd like to ask that you sign our guest book. I know there's a line out front, many of you do not. And the addresses that we receive on that will be added into a database so we will be on our mailing list for any future activities here at Maplewood. Also, I'd like to thank Watson's, Windmill, Yearwoods, Ben Lirps, Bell Framing, and Mrs. McKay, the planning teams, and everyone that worked hard and donated to make today a success. There's some activities we'd like you to stick around. We're not going to make you leave at 4 o'clock since it's 4:02. We want you to see the building. We have student tour guides assigned to 12 strategic locations throughout the building. We have the building rested as they see customers walk by. And hopefully you'll ask them some questions about the area that they've been studying. There's also some pictures and class pictures from the 1960s, 70s, 80s. Also, we have some unidentified pictures from the 30s and 40s. And there's an activity that we'd like you to help us to identify teachers and people and leaders through the holidays. Also, I'd like you to take a look at 2 chalkboards, the really original chalkboards from the 1934 building that have been redone by Steve Neely and his firm, and are on display with a collection of photographs and memorabilia from 1891 to 1934. There's 1 chalkboard, and then across the hall is a 1934 to 1998 chalkboard. Also, we'd like you to know that we're continuing to collect items from Maplewood, and we intend to have an integrated hallway stand as a Maplewood museum. And we'll continue to add items as they're given to us. We have many scrapbooks out in the hallway, and history books, class picture books. Mrs. Paddock's class last year interviewed a bunch of Esther Ferris's friends, and their book is on display in the office. We hope you'll have time to look at that today. And also there's a remodel scrapbook that shows some pictures of things we went through. That's on display. All the rooms are open, and we'll have refreshments. I just have a few closing thoughts. In 1899, Dr. Warner M. Karshner was the principal of Maplewood when this very brick, which was excavated during the construction of this gym, and many others like this one supplied by J.T. Stewart and Son were used to add a foundation under the old Maplewood School. In 1934, Dulcie Croy was the principal at Maplewood when this brick was used to create a new Maplewood, which was a beautiful modern building with brick and tile with 6 classrooms, office, storage rooms, enclosed play court, an auditorium, restrooms, library, and large corridors. The furnishings were modern and included an automatic fuel oil heating system, thermostatically controlled. Each room was heated as a separate unit and had 4 installations. The building had a tile floor, classroom floors of maple with corridors paved with marbleized asphalt. In 1948, Piercy Cox was the principal of Maplewood when this brick was added to the $200,000 addition of the west wing of Maplewood. It was the same addition that the replica program was celebrating. It includes the famous kindergarten room and the words of Roger Ufkes, many of you might know, who was a Maplewood 6th grader at the time. He said, "We think we have the nicest school anywhere." In 1979, Ken Keener was the principal when this brick was used to fill in windows, reducing the number of windows by 56% and making Maplewood the most energy-efficient structure in the Puyallup School District. Many of those same bricks were knocked out again during our remodel to make room for the windows of our new classrooms in the west wing. And finally, this is my brick. This brick was used to build a new gym. I had the privilege of serving as the principal. Thank you for coming.